My ex's husband humiliated me in front of his friends. No job, no wife, nothing. They all laughed. Until the next day, they received a termination letter. I was the owner of the company they worked for, and I fired them all. My name is Gail. I'm 38 years old, and a week ago, my life took a turn I didn't expect. I'm the owner of a logistics company I built with a lot of effort, but the last 2 years have been hell. My wife, Laura, cheated on me and left without saying who she was with, leaving me with a broken heart and a loneliness that wouldn't go away. I didn't know who the other guy was, and that ate me up inside. Tired of feeling alone, I decided to try Tinder to meet someone new. But last Friday at a cafe, I ran into Laura, her new husband, and their friends, and what happened there led me to make a decision that taught them an unforgettable lesson. I had arranged to meet Sophia, a girl from Tinder, at a cafe I used to go with Laura on weekends. I don't know why I chose it. Maybe because it was close. I've been feeling empty for months, and Sophia seemed nice over messages. I arrived early, ordered a coffee, and sat at a table, scrolling to my phone while I waited. The place was full, with the clinking of cups and chatter. I was checking messages when I heard a familiar laugh. I looked toward a table in the back and saw Laura laughing with a group. My stomach tightened. It was the first time I'd seen her since she left. Next to her was a guy with a confident smile, and there were 5 or 6 other people, all talking loudly. Then I recognized them, employees from my company. The guy with Laura, who I assumed was her husband, was Marcos, a finance assistant. The others were Javier from the warehouse, Pablo from data, and a couple more. I never get involved in hiring. That's handled by my manager, Elena, so they didn't know I was the owner. But there I was, and suddenly it hit me. Marcos was a guy Laura had cheated on me with. I wanted to leave to avoid trouble, but before I could, Laura saw me. Her eyes locked onto mine, and a cold smile crossed her face. She whispered something to Marcos. Pointing at me, Marcos looked, smiled, and stood up with a cup in hand, walking toward my table with his friends and Laura following. "Gail, what a surprise," Laura said in a mocking tone. "We thought you'd be at home, alone as always." Marcos laughed and stood in front of me, looking at me like I was nobody. "No job, no wife, nothing," he said, raising his voice so everyone could hear. "What are you doing here, Gail?" "Coming to see what you lost." Javier let out a loud laugh, and Pablo joined in with a nervous chuckle. Laura kept staring at me with that smile that made my blood boil. I wanted to respond but held back. I wasn't going to give them the satisfaction of seeing me angry. "Look, buddy," Marcos continued, placing a hand on my table. "We have everything. Friends, a good life, a woman like Laura. You just got this table in your loser face." Everyone laughed, including Laura. That hurt more than Marcos's words, that she, after everything, was there mocking me. But before I could do anything, I saw Sophia walking in. I didn't want her to get involved in this. So I stood up. "Enjoy yourselves," I said, looking at them, and walked toward the door to meet Sophia. As I left, I heard Marcos shout, "Come back when you got something to offer." The humiliation burned like a punch. I met Sophia, and we went somewhere else. The date was fine, she was nice, but I couldn't get what happened out of my head. Laura's smile, Marcos' words, their laughter, and the fact that they all worked for me without knowing who I was. That night at home, I couldn't sleep. The anger consumed me. But then I remembered something. Before Laura saw me, I'd overheard part of their conversation. I didn't think much of it at the time, but now it made sense. They were talking about the company, and it didn't sound good. "We need to move those reports fast," Pablo said, lowering his voice. "If we don't get the money out, someone's going to suspect." "Relax, I've got it," Marco said. "Javier, make sure the warehouse guys don't talk. The shipments need to go out without questions." "Done," Javier replied. "In a few months, we'll be loaded." I froze. They weren't just employees. They were stealing from my company. Diverted money. Fake reports, manipulated shipments. Not only had they humiliated me, but they were also looting the business I'd built with years of work. The anger turned cold and calculated. I had the power to make them pay, and I was going to use it. The next morning, I called my lawyer, Federico, and told him everything. The encounter, the mockery, and what I'd overheard about the theft. Federico was blunt. "Gail, this is serious," he said. "If it's true, we can fire them and get them into legal trouble. Give me a day to review the records." "Do it now," I said. "I want them out by tomorrow." The rest of the day was endless. I imagined Marcos and his friends in the office, laughing, thinking everything was fine. But I knew something they didn't. I was the owner, and they were about to learn that the hard way. On Monday, Federico called me. "We've got them," he said. "Transfers to shady accounts, fake reports, shipments that don't add up. Marcos, Javier, Pablo, and 2 others are involved. We can fire them and press charges." "Perfect," I said, feeling a cold calm. "Termination letters for all of them. Make sure they get them tomorrow at the same time." "Are you sure?" Federico asked. "This is going to be a blow." "That's what I want," I replied. "Nobody laughs at me and steals from my company without consequences." That night, as I thought about Marcos' face when he read the letter, I felt a mix of anger and satisfaction. It wasn't just about the mockery. It was about the betrayal, the theft, everything. I was going to teach them a lesson they wouldn't forget. But I didn't know things were about to get more complicated. On Tuesday morning, I woke up with a mix of anger and anticipation. Marcos' words at the cafe, "No job, no wife, nothing," still echoed in my head, along with Laura's and her friends' laughter. But what really had me fired up was knowing that they, my own employees, were stealing from my company, the company I built from scratch. Today was the day everything would change. The termination letters were ready, but this time I wasn't going to stay in the shadows. I wanted Marcos, Laura, and the others to know exactly who was firing them. I sat in my home office with a coffee I didn't touch, waiting for news from Federico, my lawyer. He had worked with Elena, the HR manager, to ensure the letters reached Marcos, Javier, Pablo, Luis, and Diego simultaneously. I wanted the blow to be swift, so they wouldn't have time to talk or make excuses. But after what happened at the cafe, firing them was enough. I wanted to look them in the eyes and let them know that Gail, the guy they humiliated, was the owner of the company. At 10 a.m., Federico called. "Gail, the letters have been delivered," he said with satisfied tone. "All 5 are out. Elena says Marcos went crazy, shouting that it was a mistake. Javier just stared at the letter and said nothing. Pablo tried to negotiate, but Elena shut him down. Luis and Diego left quickly. What did Marcos say exactly? I asked, picturing him. That he was going to sue, that someone would pay for this, Federico replied. But they've got nothing. The evidence is clear. Transfers to foreign accounts, fake reports, shipments that don't match. The lawsuit against them is almost ready. Good, I said, but I'm not waiting. I'm going to the office now. I want to talk to them. Are you sure? Federico asked, surprised. This could get messy. I don't care, I replied. I want them to know who I am. I hung up, got ready, put on a decent shirt, grabbed my jacket, and drove to the company. While driving, I couldn't stop thinking about Marcos' face when he saw me at the cafe, his arrogant smile, Laura laughing by his side. They were about to learn I wasn't the loser they thought. I arrived at the office around noon. Marissa, the receptionist, saw me and looked surprised. Gail, I didn't know you were coming today, she said. There's a bit of a commotion in finance. I know, I said. Where's Elena? In her office, she replied. But Marcos and some guys are there making noise. I smiled. Perfect. I walked straight to Elena's office, and when I entered, I saw Marcos, Javier, and Pablo arguing with her. Laura wasn't there, but that didn't surprise me. She was always good at disappearing when things got tough. What's going on here? I said, walking in with a calm but firm voice. Marcos turned around, and when he saw me, his face changed. First surprise, then rage. What are you doing here? He spat. Elena looked confused but said nothing. Javier and Pablo went quiet, staring at me like they didn't understand. I'm Gail, I said, crossing my arms, the owner of this company, and you five no longer work here. The silence was total. Marcos opened his mouth, but nothing came out. Javier blinked like he couldn't believe it. Pablo turned pale. What are you talking about? Marcos said, recovering. The owner? You? Don't make me laugh. Ask Elena, I said, pointing at her. Or better yet, check your termination letter. It's signed by me. Elena nodded slowly. It's true, she said. Gail is the owner. Marcos laughed, but it was a nervous laugh. This is a joke, right? It can't be. You're a nobody. A nobody who knows all about the transfers you made to foreign accounts, I said, stepping toward him. The fake reports, the shipments that don't add up, everything. And now you're not just fired. You're facing charges. Javier finally spoke. Wait, Gail, we didn't know. You didn't need to know who I was to steal from me. I cut him off. But now you do when it's too late. Pablo tried to jump in. Gail, can we talk? Work this out. There's nothing to work out, I said. You're out, and the police already have the evidence. If you want to talk to my lawyer. Marcos took a step toward me, and for a second, I thought he might try something, but Elena stood up. Enough, she said. Security's on the way. Leave now. Marcos glared at me with pure hatred. This isn't over, he said. You'll regret this. We'll see, I replied, not breaking eye contact. Security arrived and escorted them out. As they were taken away, Marcos kept shouting, but I didn't care. I felt lighter, like a weight had been lifted. I wanted them to know the truth, and now they did. I wasn't the loser from the cafe. I was the one with the power. After they left, Elena looked at me. Gail, that was intense, she said. I didn't know you want to confront them. I had to, I said. But now comes the important part. Make sure they have no access to anything, and keep me posted if anything strange happens. Understood, she replied. That afternoon, Federico called. Gail, the lawsuit's ready, he said. We can file it tomorrow. And there's something else. We found emails mentioning Laura. She's not directly involved, but she knew what Marcos was doing. That tied a knot in my stomach. Laura, the woman I was married to, didn't just laugh at me. She let them steal from me. I didn't know whether to feel anger or sadness. Include her in the lawsuit, I said. Let her face the consequences. The rest of the day was a whirlwind. Elena told me the employees were nervous about the firings, but I didn't give details. Let them talk. I didn't care. All I wanted was justice. That night, I got a message from Laura. Gail, please, let's talk. I didn't know everything Marcos was doing. It's not what you think. I read it and deleted it. I had nothing to say to her. If she wanted to explain, she could do it in court. On Wednesday, things got crazier. Federico called. We found external contact helping Marcos, he said. It's a guy from a foreign bank. And there are more emails with Laura. She didn't move money, but she knew about the plan and didn't say anything. Do what you have to, I said. I want everyone to pay. On Thursday, the police went to company. I wasn't there, but Elena told me they detained Marcos, Javier, and Pablo for questioning. Luis and Diego were being tracked down. The news spread fast, and the company was a mess of rumors. But I was calm. I'd landed the first blow, and the rest was coming. However, something worried me. Laura was still free, and Marcos didn't seem like the type to give up. I knew more problems were coming, but I was ready. Nobody mocks me, steals from my company, and gets away with it. And now that they knew who I was, there was no turning back. On Friday morning, I woke up with a strange feeling. I had won. Marcos, Javier, Pablo, Luis, and Diego were out of my company, facing charges for fraud and embezzlement. Laura, my ex-wife, was entangled in the mess for knowing what they were doing and staying silent. The humiliation at the cafe, Marcos' words. No job, no wife, nothing. All of that was behind me. I made them pay. And the best part was that they knew I, Gail, the guy they mocked, was the owner of the company. But I didn't feel as good as I'd expected. Something weighed on me, like justice had a cost I hadn't calculated. The week had been a whirlwind. After confronting them in the office, where I saw the shock on Marcos' face, when he learned I was the boss, everything moved fast. The police stepped in, Rumors at the company exploded, and Federico was building a lawsuit that would bury them. But as I got ready for the day, my phone rang. It was Elena, the HR manager, and her voice sounded tense. "Gail, I need you to come to the office," she said. "There's a problem. Some employees are nervous about the firings and arrests, and Laura's here. She wants to talk to you." "Laura?" I said, frowning. "What's she doing there?" "I don't know, but she's insisting," Elena replied. "She says it's important." I sighed. Part of me wanted to ignore her, let her sink with Marcos, but another part, the one that still remembered the years we spent together, wanted to hear her out. Maybe I needed to close that door once and for all. "I'll be there in an hour," I said. "Keep her under control." I drove to the company with my head full of thoughts. The confrontation with Marcos and the others had been cathartic, but Laura was different. She didn't just betray me 2 years ago or laugh at me in the cafe. She was tied to the theft. What could she want? To apologize? To blame me? When I arrived, the reception was quieter than usual. Employees glanced at me, and I could feel the weight of the rumors. I passed Marissa's desk, and she gave me a nervous smile. "She's in the meeting room," she said, pointing down the hall. I walked in, and there was Laura, sitting in a chair with red eyes and messy hair. She didn't look like the confident woman who mocked me at the cafe. She looked up when I entered, and for a second, I saw the Laura I once knew, but only for a second. "Gail, thank you for coming," she said with a trembling voice. "I need to explain." "I don't have much time," I cut her off, crossing my arms. "Say what you want and leave." She swallowed hard and looked down. "I didn't know everything Marcos was doing," she started. "I knew something wasn't right, but I didn't think it was that serious. He told me it was normal business, that it wasn't hurting anyone." "And you believe him?" I said with a bitter laugh. "Or did you just look the other way because it suited you?" "It's not like that," she replied, raising her voice. "I was in love. Gail, Marcos made me feel things you never." She stopped, as if realizing what she'd said, but it was too late. Her words hit me like a punch, not because they were new, but because they came from her after everything. "Go on," I said with a cold voice. "Finish what you were going to say." "I'm sorry," she murmured. "I didn't mean to hurt you. I just want you to know I wasn't part of the theft. I didn't move money. I didn't do anything. But yes, I should have said something, and now I'm paying for it. Marcos is detained, my life's a mess, and I don't know what to do." For a moment, I felt sorry for her, but then I remembered the cafe. Her smile as Marcos humiliated me, her silence as they stole from my company. The pity turned to anger. "You should have thought of that before," I said. "You knew what they were doing and did nothing. Now you'll face the consequences like they will." "Gail, please," she begged, tears in her eyes. "Don't do this to me. For what we had you destroyed." I interrupted. "Get out, Laura. We have nothing left to say." I turned and walked out of the room. I heard her call after me, but I didn't stop. When I got to Elena's office, she looked at me, concerned. "Are you okay?" she asked. "Yeah, I lied. What's going on with the employees?" "There's nervousness," she said. "Some think there'll be more firings. Others think the company's in trouble because of the scandal. We need to calm things down. Set up a meeting tomorrow." I said, "I'll talk to everyone. I don't want rumors." That night at home, I couldn't get Laura's image out of my head. Her tears, her broken voice. Part of me wanted to believe her, but the other knew I couldn't trust her. She'd chosen Marcos, chosen to laugh at me, chosen to stay silent. And now she was paying the price. But I wasn't unscathed either. The confrontation with her left a bitter taste. Like despite everything, part of me still cared about her. On Saturday, I went to the company for the meeting. The auditorium was full, with about 100 employees looking at me with a mix of curiosity and fear. I'd never spoken to them all like this, but it was time. I stood in front of them with Elena by my side and started. "I'm Gail, the owner of this company," I said, scanning the crowd. "Some of you didn't know that, and that's fine. I'm not here to be the center of attention, but I want you to know that this company is my life, and I won't let anyone destroy it. 5 people were fired for stealing. It wasn't an easy decision, but it was necessary. There won't be more firings unless someone's doing something wrong. Keep doing your job, and everything will be fine. There was a murmur, but no one spoke up. I ended the meeting promising transparency and went to my office. Elena followed. "I think it worked," she said, "but the scandal won't go away quickly. The press is already talking." "Let them talk," I said. "As long as we have the evidence, I'm not worried." But I was worried, not about the company, but about myself. The fight with Laura, the way revenge, it was all affecting me. That afternoon, I got a message from Sophia, the Tinder girl, asking if I wanted to go out. I wanted to say yes, but I didn't have the energy. I told her I was busy and sat on the couch, staring at the ceiling. For the first time in days, I felt alone. I'd won, but at what cost? On Monday, Federico called with news. "Marcos, Javier, and Pablo are going to trial," he said. Luis and Diego turned themselves in. "The evidence is overwhelming. Laura won't go to jail, but she'll face a hefty fine for complicity. The bank contact is cooperating with the police." "Good," I said, but my voice sounded hollow. "Are you okay, Gail?" Federico asked. "You won. You should be celebrating." "Yeah, I know," I replied. "I just need time." The following days were strange. The company went back to normal, but I didn't. I texted Sophia, but couldn't bring myself to see her. Every time I thought of Laura, I felt a pang, not love, but something more complicated. Maybe it was the idea of what we could have been, or realizing that, despite everything, she'd been part of my life. A week later, I received a letter from Laura. I opened it with trembling hands. It said, "Gail, I know you don't want to hear from me, but I need to say I'm sorry. Not for what happened with Marcos, but for not being honest. I messed up and now I'm paying for it. I hope you can move on someday. I'm going to try." There was no signature, just her name. The letter wrecked me, not because I wanted her back, but because it was a reminder of everything I'd lost. Not just Laura, but myself in the process. Revenge was sweet, but it left a void. I'd won, but I wasn't whole. I decided to take a break. I told Elena to run the company for a while and went to a cabin outside the city. There, away from the city noise, I started to think. Justice had been served, but I had to find a way to heal. I called Sophia and told her I wanted to see her when I got back. She replied with a smiling emoji, and that gave me a bit of hope. Marcos and his friends paid for what they did. Laura faced the consequences. The company moved forward. But I was learning that victory doesn't always feel like one. I'd won, but the price was high.